For
How
sure.
about you? Let's hear an experience of you, like when sometime that you felt pretty anxious.
I mean, it comes and goes like daily. I work out like 35 minutes.
Rising in the dawn, the sun took orders. Faith in the veins, like the blood of the martyrs. Walking through the storm with the armor of light.
Hey guys, I'm Nat,
And I'm Jess.
and this is the next episode in our podcast that we have provided to hopefully help you with programming physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So today's topic,
Competition anxiety.
so we will be talking more, especially with the Open coming up. We think this is a really great opportunity to be talking about competition and performance anxiety. But before that,
Oh yeah.
high-low buffalo.
Buffalo. I'll go first. I told you the other day when I guess we're just going to tell a story every time I go to the grocery store. Because I sat in the parking lot and I thought, do I want to do this? Because I had all three of my kids. So I'm serious. It's like, do I need
Existential crisis in the parking lot.
I was like, is this going to be beneficial for me and my children? Answer is probably not, but we're going to do it anyways because I got to get some stuff from the store. And I wasn't a good mom that ordered ahead and, and I thought, this is either going to be a high or a lower buffalo. So I thought to myself, turns out we're going to do it for all three. So it's going to be my high and low buffalo.
Excellent.
In one trip to Kroger. So this happened just like a day ago. We go into Kroger, I prep the kids. The older ones understand. Debbie Sue does not understand anything I tell her as far as this goes. But it's like, look, we can do this. We got those little Mickey Mouse snack things. It's like, y'all can pick out one of those if we got good behavior. Bribing the kids works sometimes. I was like, we can do this. So the other two were pretty good. But Debbie Sue is at the point where she will not stay in the grocery cart. And she is a huge liability. Like, I don't know how a 2-year-old can be like such a crazy person. So we're going, we make it pretty far, and then she just like won't stay in the grocery cart. So I have to get her out and get her to try to walk with me. And I was like, okay, we can do this. We're almost to like their snack reward part. We'll get there, we're in the produce section. And I was like, oh, look at those cherry tomatoes. Those are right at Debbie Sue's height. It's like, I turn, and Hannah and Abby Jo have like the decision-making process I do, where they take forever to choose because they want to make the best decision. So I'm like, y'all gotta hurry up. She's gonna do something. And I turn back around, and she has gotten the cherry tomatoes and is several feet from me. She looks at me, and then I start to take a step towards her. She throws it up in the air and runs away. So I have to sprint to get her. Cherry tomatoes are rolling everywhere, all over the produce section.
I feel like this is an episode of VeggieTales.
I know. Yeah, it's real life. I'm not making this up, too. So I have to go get her. It's embarrassing. And this poor guy who works in the produce section is right there. And he has a name tag. His name is Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, so this is part of the low. But Kevin is like the high because he comes in, he goes and grabs a broom and a dustpan. He's like, I got it. He is not at once seems bitter at all. Like, I truly appreciate people like that. He was so sweet, and he came and cleaned all of my child's mess up. Like, we didn't have to pay for I was just going to pay for the floor tomatoes. But he cleans it all up, and he's like, don't even worry about it. He's like, you're just going to blink and they're growing up fast. He's like, my daughter is 22 years old, and he was so nice. So, Kevin, if you watch this, thank you. You're the high for this week.
Good job, Kevin.
Yeah, and it just to add a little more to the buffalo side of it. So I was like, oh gosh, all right, let's just get a rotisserie chicken and get out of here.
Gotta get the rotisserie chicken.
Yeah, or they're not gonna eat, because that was the plan for dinner. So I get the chicken, I turn to grab it, and I look up again, and Debbie Sue is like several feet from me, just waiting for me to start chasing her. And I sprint after her, and she takes off, and I didn't know Abby Jo was like coming behind me hot. And so I scoop down to like pick her up, and Abby Jo spears me with her head.
Oh
no! I think it like gave both of us concussion, but we're okay. So we just,
What an eventful
limped our way out.
Grocery store life you have.
Yeah, gosh, I was like, is this worth it?
Do you go to different grocery stores to make sure you don't get a reputation?
I kind of do. I mean, based on what we need. But it's like, man, based on how bad it is, we might have to take a 2-week break from Kroger. At least Kevin was nice.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have Kevin.
Yeah, so that's the high. And you never know what kind of impact you make on random people, so I appreciate people like that. So, high-low buffalo, all in one.
I love that story.
Your turn.
All right, so I'm going to start with my low. It's not a complete low, but I would say it's just kind of, I think it's worth mentioning. We had to say goodbye to one of our coaches here, Coach Matt.
Yeah, that is.
So we had his goodbye party this weekend. We wish him the best, and I think we're all excited to see what God's going to do in his life.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a really cool adventure that he gets to go on, but it's always, sad to say goodbye.
It is.
So
For sure.
that I'd say, kind of the low of the week, saying goodbye to someone. The high is I met with Tracy, the owner of the gym, and we went over some plans for this year's open, and I am stoked.
Yes.
We're going to have so much fun. We have teams, we have captains, we have staff for the different Friday Night Lights events, we have different themes. Like, it's just going to be an absolute blast.
Yeah.
So if you've never done the open before, you should definitely sign up for nothing else than a party.
Yeah,
it's going to be a great time.
She's organized.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blast.
It's going to be so fun. So that's my high. My buffalo is kind of a sweet one. My director, this is just totally random, out of nowhere, director for soccer, he texted me the other day and was like, I had lunch with one of the families and her daughter's on your team, and she was just going on and on and on about how great Coach Natalie was.
Aww.
And like how she just loved you and like this, that, and the other. So he made a point to text me to let me know that. It was just like that was just a highlight.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You don't know what kind of impact you're having on people.
Yeah. And I think it's good to let people know when good things are being said about them.
Absolutely.
Because I had no idea otherwise. But it was out of the blue. He had no reason to have to tell me that. But he made a point to say it anyway. So I appreciate that.
Good job, Natalie. I like that. That's super encouraging. I think, it tells you you're on the right path and doing the right things. So, good job.
Love being a coach.
Yes. Well, you should. You're good at it.
All right, on to our subject. So for performance anxiety, I think it would be cool if we put it into our own words. And so how would you, specifically like CrossFit world, how would you kind of define performance anxiety, not just for yourself, but like maybe for athletes you've seen, just defining what it is?
What it is, yeah. So nerves is what I think of, first of all. It just, that little bit of a nervous feeling, butterflies in your stomach, whatever you want to call it. Elevated heart rate, maybe a little sweaty. Just like something that feels like higher stakes is what I think of. Something that, whether it's good or bad, there's going to be some kind of repercussions from the outcome. So like something that matters is what I think of. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm same boat. The only thing I would change is, from how I see it, is that it's excessive. Like when it's anxiety, it's not just like I'm a little nervous about this. It's like the anxiety is kind of taking over your thoughts, and so it's a little bit of like excessive worry going into it. That's kind of what I had is, it's excessive worry about being able to perform to the standards of yourself or others. Yeah.
So excessive worry. So is anxiety a bad thing? Is it always bad? And can you walk us through like?
I don't think nerves are a bad thing.
Okay.
Like when it's just you feel nervous. We talked about this a little bit in last week's episode, how if you're nervous about something, maybe a little anxious, it keeps you focused. It also is a fear that you need to overcome. And we talked about, if you're fearful of failing something, that means that there's, like you said, something on the line. There's stakes involved, which isn't a bad thing. And then if you can learn to overcome those nerves, it's it's just like strength building. You are more comfortable and confident to take on the next bigger task. Mm-hmm. But where it kind of goes into that anxiety word, or is when it becomes excessive and starts to
have some like physical responses that are maybe not good. So what if I was looking at healthy nerves versus unhealthy anxiety? What are some signs or things that I should look for?
That's a great question. I would say healthy nerves, if it's something that is motivating you, if you have a competition coming up and you're like, I'd like for our competition, and I didn't want to let you down, I had a program that I was coming in multiple days a week working on some extra stuff that I knew was going to be in that competition. So it was like, it was motivation, I had accountability, I was doing extra work. Where it starts to get into that anxious, not so healthy is, are your thoughts so overwhelmed with whatever that is that you literally can't focus on anything else? Like you're losing focus at work, you're losing focus with your family. So not even being able to focus on like your daily life tasks at that point. Are you physiologically, are you having problems? Are you having, stomach problems, headaches?
I mean, that's real.
It's absolutely real. So when you're starting to have things that are interfering with your ability to live your daily life, then that's when you're going into that unhealthy, you need to pull yourself out. this is no longer being beneficial for you.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't compete, but you need to take some healthier steps to competing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make you like abnormal to have some anxiety about
No.
competition or anything else.
I think that's so. I think everyone experiences anxiety to some extent.
Yeah.
It's then how do you respond to that anxiety?
Yeah.
Because feeling anxiety is a natural response to our nervous system. We see something that we should be afraid of, or that our body perceives that we should be afraid of, and we're going to respond, whether we like it or not. It's how then we consciously respond to that anxiety.
Yeah. I like that. I think this could be a good toolkit kind of series, like equipping us to know how to deal with this and kind of build part of who we are as an athlete and how we approach our workouts and competitions. So we've got signs of what to look for both good and bad. Do you have like personal stories or experiences with?
All the time.
Yeah.
I am an anxious little person over here all the time.
Not all the time.
It's all the time. I just hide it well. I think the most recent one, and we've talked about this a couple of times, but my first competition that we did this last year, and you've mentioned this before, I didn't do it because I refer to it as stage fright. I don't, I get anxiety about not hitting standards and things like that, but it's more so about doing it in front of people.
Yeah.
I do not like doing stuff in front of people at all. Don't watch me turn around. And so I was very, very nervous about not only competing, but competing with a partner that was going to be watching me, but then also competing in front of a judge and competing in front of a crowd. Like all of that together was pushing me to a very, very anxious place.
Yeah.
And I think what helped me the most, because I had people giving me advice, I was talking to people. Actually, your husband gave me some great advice at some point.
Look at that.
I had a lot of really supportive people, and I think that helped was going and talking to people and getting support, people who have done it before, seeing what they felt. And then the other really big thing that helped me was going back to my why.
Yes.
And like ultimately, none of that mattered if I didn't have the right spirit about it. And so I was going, what is my character? What do I want to represent? Do I want people to see a really great athlete, or do I want them to see someone who's bringing glory to God and having the right perspective there? And it was a very grounding experience. And I think that is what helped me. So going to people who had done it before and hearing about their experience and getting advice, and then having the grounding experience of knowing, like, my God is what's important, not the opinions of
I think that's
others.
cool.
Which I say, but it's still a struggle all the time.
It's
like, it's not something that just like flipped like a switch.
Yeah, and it's not something like you just do once and then you're set like that.
No.
It's something you have to tell yourself. It's a daily thing. You tell yourself, like, this is my why. This is like my, joy in life isn't dependent on what Jess thinks about my workout or anybody else. Like, like you said, it's not something you have to do alone. I think isolation kind of makes the anxiety stuff
absolutely
worse.
Yeah.
So
spiraling.
Yeah, if you got stuff that you're worried about, you can talk to a coach or your friend about it, and I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah.
Sure.
How about you? Let's hear an experience of you, like when sometime that you felt pretty anxious.
I mean, it comes and goes like daily. Workout, like a 35-minute workout yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I can actually physically do this.
Yeah. So I said every person in the gym.
Yeah, so it's not limited to competitions, but I think it's probably elevated. I think I was telling you about the open workout with the heavy snatches, like the 135 snatches. I actually did that. Kurt talked me into doing that as like a face-off here in front of people. That is not something I ever would volunteer myself to do. I did it because he asked me to, and I respected him. And it was with like very other good athletes, and so that was like stuff that is way out of my comfort zone. I think produces some anxieties, and so if I can come back to like you said, knowing my why, and knowing who God is and who I am in relation to that. Like, it's not all dependent on me.
Right.
Like, I'm going to do my very best. I think that sometimes what produces anxiety is not doing my best, like missing that opportunity for like a partner, and not doing my best for God. That makes me the most anxious. But if I can kind of let go of some of that stuff and I'm a little bit freer as I work out, that is like, I think the most fun workouts and the most fun competitions is when you can let go a little bit and not be so afraid of like failing.
Yes.
Because it's, not everything's dependent on me being successful in a workout. All right. So we've got some personal stuff. How about some tips to overcome anxiety? I love practical stuff. So I think you have some practical stuff for us.
Yeah, I think we both have some really good ideas here. I I think it's pretty evident we both struggle with a little bit of anxiety on a regular basis.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hide that. It's fine.
So yeah, a whole lot of tips. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but they always have some benefit. I'm not gonna say that it's like you said, it's not a light switch. But I really like the idea of cognitive reframing, which sounds, it's a fancy way to say making a negative thought a positive thought.
Yeah.
And so looking at the same picture, the analogy I heard for this, and I loved it, was like, you know, when you look through a camera and the object that's closer is focused and the background is defocused.
Yeah.
All you're doing is you're now defocusing what's in front and focusing on what's back. It's like twisting the lens on a camera.
Yeah.
The reality stays the same, but your perspective changes on what you're focusing on. And so you come in for a workout and you say, this is a 35-minute workout, that's going to be so hard, I don't know if I can finish. Or you can have a positive thought of like, I've done this, I've worked so hard in the weeks leading up to this, I followed the programming. I know my coaches want to program something that they didn't think we could do.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go through this and see how far I can do, because I've done a lot of hard work up to this point. And so just how are you going to focus on this? Is this a really fun challenge that you've been working toward? Or is this a really hard task that you don't want to take on?
Yeah.
Same workout, same opportunity, just your perspective on it.
Yeah. And I like that those things are true. You're not making up false things to tell yourself.
Yeah.
You're just reinforcing true things that you maybe would suppress because you're focusing on like the anxiety producing things.
Yeah. Well, and you're looking at the outcome of it. What if I fail? Or
Yeah.
You know, it sounds cliche, but you know, what if you succeed?
Yeah.
So,
And what if you fail? Like,
yeah,
that's
so
okay.
what?
Yeah. I mean, we're not expected to be perfect people and perfect athletes, you know? So I think that's okay. I like that. All right. What next?
Well, I know you had some too.
Let's sprinkle some in back and forth. I think like preparing for a workout, if you're doing a competition or maybe even an open workout, warming up the same way, so it's particularly for a competition that you have in your training previously, I think that kind of reduces some nerves because you're just going through the motions and like preparing your body to do something that you're like, okay, I know how to do all this stuff. I know how to do this warm up. We've practiced these things. I'm ready. And CrossFit is partially a lot of unknowable things, but it has prepared you for that. And so if your preparation is the same, maybe you're eating the same thing that day that you've had before, I think that kind of helps you too. For me, there's some like scripture stuff that I'll go through, and my routine in the morning has a devotional in it, so I think that helps me too. I don't know, what about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of that, it's not just knowing that you've prepared, but you letting that anxiety or those nerves motivate you to prepare also, like in the future. Like if you know you have something coming up, set a plan to prepare for it in the weeks to come.
I like that, thinking about nerves as something that you can use as a positive thing. Like you can embrace the nervousness, embrace the enthusiasm instead of pretending like you have to be super calm.
Yeah.
But using that energy for something positive versus letting that energy like wear you down physically before you even do the workout.
Yes.
Like you said, I think if it's just worn you down before you've even lifted one weight or done one rep, then that's when it's problematic.
Well, and it can change your mindset too when you think about what you've prepared for and you prepare properly, then you can be excited about what you're getting into and less fearful. Now you get to look forward to it, and that is a step in changing your mindset also.
Yeah. Preparation.
Yeah. Preparation leads to, you get to be excited about the challenge rather than the fear of, oh no.
Yeah. And then self-talk, we've talked about that. We did a whole episode on that.
Yes.
I think that's important just to touch on that because like a positive attitude makes a huge difference. Like I'm sure you've heard that in school all the time, like bad attitude's gonna ruin everything. Pretty sure I've said that at home recently, but I think it's worth remembering like your attitude does matter, and it is kind of a choice to choose positive things versus the more negative things.
Yeah, and we mentioned that in our self-talk episode where it's like no one in all of our research, there was no one that disagreed like, oh, well, this group over here actually doesn't benefit from positive self-talk.
Yeah, there's nobody that doesn't.
And so like there's so much science behind it. Even if you don't like the idea of it, it's a practiced thing. You have to teach yourself to do
it is
positive.
a discipline of
yes.
sorts. Yeah.
Because it's not always natural for people to talk positively to themselves. So you have to almost start with a script and practice it. But it is beneficial. There's no one that's saying it's not beneficial. Well, then you should probably try it.
Jump on that bandwagon and do it. It's not going to hurt you to be positive.
Right.
Debbie Downer. All right. Speaking of.
I love the accent you use, like said that.
Debbie Downer.
Debbie Downer.
I mean, I'm from out tut. It's fine. No hiding it. Speaking of, it's good to be able to laugh during competitions.
I agree. This is my
Yes.
favorite one.
Yeah. I was just thinking back at our competition and we just like laughed our way through the whole day.
Yes.
I'm sure the people who were next to us were super annoyed. We couldn't even take a picture, right, without laughing.
We can't even start this podcast
No.
without laughing.
And that part of that's nerves too. But I think
Every
that,
time.
I like that though because then my memories of that are just like joyful.
Yes.
And I'd rather that than be like sobbing in the corner. Which is a real possibility.
So find a way to laugh.
Yeah.
It's not all that serious in the
It
end.
really isn't.
Yeah.
You know, God gave you this gifts to use for Him and for His glory and for other people, but He wants you to enjoy it too. You know.
Well, that leads into knowing your why, which
Yes.
is a whole other episode we talked about too.
Yep.
Like, if it seems like an overly serious matter that you can't laugh about, maybe you need to refocus on what your why is or reestablish what your why is, and hold that as ground of what is successful and what's not successful.
Yes.
So you talked about how bringing God glory is your why,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're feeling that anxiety, that's something you can control is your attitude bringing God glory.
Yeah.
Well, if that's what you're doing, then you've already accomplished your goal for the day.
Yeah.
Everything
absolutely.
else is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, icing on the cake. I like that. I like both of those things. Like controlling what you can control, let go of the rest.
Yes.
Like it's so hard to let go. I know. I struggle with that because you want to control everything in your life, but some of it's not meant for you to control. Let go. Know your purpose and your why, and then as God becomes like brighter in your life and brighter as your why, everything else fades and is a little bit in the background. And God is that thing like you talked about in the Camerlin that's the focus. And it makes everything else better and everything else less stressful. Which is not, I'm telling myself this, like I'm not saying that I got this right in any capacity, but I'm teaching, reteaching myself these kind of things. So I like the why thing.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else? I got just a tiny bit more deep end stuff, but do you have any more tips before?
No more tips. I was just going to transition into that last one, talking about our why, because there's a Bible verse that kind of like comes up in mind when we talk about that.
Do it.
But there's one in 1 Corinthians 9, and it talks about, it's talking about like the athlete and training and stuff like that, but essentially what is being said here is that the athlete trains to get crowns that are going to shrivel up and die, but we work as disciples for crowns that are never going to fade.
Absolutely.
And so like that kind of brings me back to with our competition when I was having all those fears, remembering that though competing is great, I love competing. It's fun.
Yeah.
It feels good to accomplish things, but ultimately like what crown are you competing for?
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's so good. So good, Natalie, with your biblical wisdom. It's so serious. It's good. I love it. That stuff makes me so happy. I think I've sent you this verse before, and Travis actually, I think, sent this verse to me like our wedding day, the morning of. It's something we had studied, I don't know, with like Scott McLucas when we were getting ready to be married. But it was that 1 Peter 5:7. It's like humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, and then cast your cares on Him because He cares for you. If you look at this, I've had this pulled up because there's like a million different translations for this, but some of them say throw all your anxiety onto Him. Isn't that cool? Like, just think about that in your head. Like, throw it on Him. He's got it.
absolutely pitch it.
Absolutely. Like, however you think about it, whether you're a baseball player throw or med ball throw, whatever. Like, He's got it. He wants you to actually throw your anxiety onto Him so you can pick up what you're supposed to pick up. And I love that. I just love looking at all the translations for that Bible verse. But that was one of the ones, there's tons of stuff in the Bible about anxiety. And we were talking about before, like, you're not expected to not have anxieties and not have fears. But God is saying, like, hey, like, I've got you in this. Like, you're not ill-equipped for this. Like, I can handle whatever you've got,
And I think you hit on a good point there, is that anxiety is normal. We all experience it. We're never told in the Bible or by mental health professionals not to experience anxiety. It's all about how you respond to that anxiety. And you have control over how you respond to it.
Yeah, you can't control the circumstances that are causing your anxiety necessarily, but and I think that kind of helps grow you as a person too. Last little thing I had on here, I was just reading about like God's peace some, and I think it's John 14, 27, he says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." God wants us to have peace. It's his intention for us. He's not expecting us to be in turmoil all the time. He's so anxious that, we're physically suffering from it. And just a quick 3 things I kind of noted from my reading. We have more peace when we know and understand, like, God is sovereign. He's got everything under his control. We know his love and how much he loves us personally and his promises. We kind of talked about claiming God's promises in one of the other podcasts, but if you dig into those 3 things a little bit deeper, I feel like the peace just kind of rests on you a little bit more. So that's something, if you're preparing for a competition, you might focus in on those things a little bit and dig a little deeper. So
I like it. Last thing I want to add just before we go into our programming portion, these are normal amounts of anxiety to feel. If anyone listening is experiencing things that are beyond this, and it's something that is chronic, so you feel it all the time, something that is like, again, keeping you from living daily life on a regular basis, it is a good thing to seek professional help.
Absolutely.
We are not saying that if you do all these things, like, it's magically going to go away, especially if it's at that extent. We have people in our gym that can direct you in the right area. We have mental health workers here. So do seek help. It is a good thing to seek help if it is something that is beyond what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely don't be afraid to seek help and talk to somebody and get hooked up. There's plenty of people who love Jesus and are professional counselors, and they're there to help you.
Yes, and there's nothing weak or wrong about
Absolutely
seeking
not.
mental
You're
health.
just equipping yourself to better live your life and take care of the people around you.
Absolutely. All right, moving on.
Yep.
To our programming. So making sure everyone's on the same page, we have started on Thursdays doing an active recovery day. So a little less intensity, or so it should be. And so we wanted to talk about this a little bit now that we've kind of established those workouts on Thursday. We put an RPE on there for people to follow, but I'd like us to dive in that a little bit deeper and maybe explain that so people know when they see those numbers and those letters and the acronym, and they're like, oh no, what is this?
Too much.
Go over what exactly is the intended stimulus on this, because I know this Thursday we have a 22-minute AMRAP, which we talked about on a regular day. A 22-minute AMRAP is a pretty long AMRAP.
Grinder.
But on a Thursday, when it's supposed to be, I think it's an RP4, is that right?
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean? How many
RP4.
rounds should we be getting? Break that down for us a little bit. Also, what does RPE mean?
Rate of perceived exertion. So out of 10, right, is what we're looking at. So 1 would be very little effort at all. 10 would be absolutely maximum effort you could ever give in your life. Like, you might die afterwards. But you
should definitely have performance anxiety coordinated to a rate 10.
So 0 to 10, right? So 3 or 4 out of that, you're not even halfway on a maximum. And I would think, on a standard day, what do you think you're giving, like an 8 or 9 some days?
I try.
So probably compared to your normal effort, if your normal effort's like 8 or 9, we're looking at 3 or 4, so about half or so of your normal effort. You can look at it as like a heart rate thing, like a zone 2 pace. I know Doug Colombo is big on the zone 2. Yeah. You can do some math on that and figure that out. If you want it to be more of like, okay, can I say a sentence during this workout, that kind of thing. Or especially when it gets warmer, we'll do some running type recovery workouts. So being able to have a short conversation with somebody next to you, which I always struggled with that. I run with Shelly a couple times and she's just talking to me. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Very slow to have a conversation.
I brisk walk and I'm out of breath. But anyways, inside. But it should be something that you're moving your muscles, maybe getting a little bit of a sweat, but you're getting some lactic acid out, you're facilitating better movement. So this week we have a skilled movement with a wall walk. Okay. So we're able to practice that movement without being under heavy duress and you're not dying. So which could come up in the open, so it's something that you can open. But you should feel better afterwards, not lying on the floor half dead.
Excellent. Yeah. So for this week, it's a 22-minute AMRAP with a 400-meter row or ski, 3 wall walks, 20 banded pull-aparts, and then 10 goblet squats. So we're saying we're looking 4 to 5 minutes around.
Yeah, something like that, depending on.
And depending on like you said,
skill.
wall walks are a skill movement, so that takes you a little longer this week. That's okay.
Yeah.
because we're not looking for a score. We're looking to build the skill, and we're looking to, like you said, work out that lactic acid.
Yeah.
Recover,
And there's some good things, physically that go on your body. We're teaching your muscles to move at a different pace. We're teaching you to be able to handle movement and breathe at the same time.
Right.
Now, that being said, if you missed a workout, or like we had a bunch of snow this week, and you missed a workout and you don't need the recovery day, if you want that to be in higher intensity, that's totally fine. Just tell your coach.
Yes.
So we know how to coach you. So we're like, oh, that person's dying over there. What is she doing? And let us know ahead of time, like, hey, I missed my workout earlier. I want to treat this as a high intensity workout. Totally
And
fine.
that could be 22 minutes of movement.
Yeah,
No
we
matter
can-
what you're doing.
Yes, we can make that happen for you.
Excellent.
You like to answer your questions?
Yes, I think that's good. Anything else you want to throw in there?
No, I think I'm looking forward to the open.
I'm so
Less
man.
than 2 weeks.
All I gotta say is get your cowboy hats ready.
Oh man.
It's gonna be great.
I so wish I had a belt buckle. Like a
It's-
big Texas one. Just wear it in my leggings.
Oh yep, I can't wait. We're gonna do big reveals. Let you guys know what the themes are. It's all
Yeah.
coming soon.
I'm excited. Yep.
All right,
Good.
got it
Good job,
done.
babe.